Hi, Mr. Johnson here, and we are talking about digital texture photography today. So I hope you're ready to take some photographs of textures that you find in and around your environment. So let's talk about texture first. What is texture? That's the surface quality or feel of an object. Its smoothness, roughness, softness, etc. So when you use your sense of touch to feel something, what it feels like is its texture. Is this bumpy? Is this sticky? Is it slimy? Is it smooth? Is it rough? Right? That's the texture. It could be hairy, furry, right? So many different options. But the surface quality or feel of an object is its texture. Let's talk about taking good quality cell phone pictures. I know we've gone over this before with a lot of projects, but it is helpful to go over it again. Make sure that your phone is charged. If you're using a Chromebook or an iPad or a tablet, make sure that that is charged. Get close to your subject. Try not to use the zoom as much if you can. It does lower the quality of your images. Newer phones often have a great quality zoom, so that might be moot for you, but it is better to get close to your subjects when you can. Number 3, think about composition. You want to make sure your subject fills the space in your photograph, and we're not looking for a small object that's far away. Number 4, hold your phone steady. Right? You don't want to get a blurry picture if your phone is moving while you're taking a photograph. So hold it steady. And along with that, number 5, take multiple shots and choose the best one. It's always better to take 4 or 5 photos and pick the one that will work for you instead of taking one picture and hoping that it's good. Number 6, have enough light. If it's too dark, we won't be able to see your subject. But keeping that in mind, number 7, try not to use your flash. If you can help it, it does flatten out your subject. Number 8, if you have an iPhone or a similar smartphone, they often have touch screen focus, where you can touch on the screen on the area you'd like the camera to focus on, and it will automatically focus there for you. So that's a great tool if you have it. Try not to have a distracting background. Make sure that we are focusing on what you want us to focus on as the subject of your photograph. And number 10, make sure your photos are level. We don't want something that's crooked. You hand it in. We want it to be nice and level. Now, let's look at some photographs of texture. This is what you'll be doing for your assignment, creating photos solely of textures of objects. So what we're doing is zooming in really close to our subject so that your photo is really about the texture and not about the object itself. So looking at the top row of photos here, you have a flower petals, you have yarn or string. Here you have thick coiled rope and a basketball. So we know what those things are, and a basket and a brick wall and wood bark and a turtle shell and so on. But the photos, because they're so zoomed in and cropped, they're really about just the texture of that subject, what it feels like on the surface. We're trying to capture the surface feel. So think about what words might describe some of these textures. This is me pausing so you can think about that for just a bit. So now let's talk about macro photography. Macro photography is what we're doing for this project. It is when you zoom in very close to your subject so it entirely fills the space. It's often focused on very small subjects. So if you look at this photo of the cat, this is a macro photo of the cat because it's all about the fur texture right on that cat's face. And it's cropped so closely. Now, if you saw the entire cat, it's not macro photography because you're seeing too much of the subject. Here, it's tightly cropped, so close to its object, really zoomed in. That's what we're looking for macro photography. There should be no background in these photos, only your subject filling the entire space. So let's look at a few examples of different macro photos that are focused on texture. Look at this coiled rope. It's all about that rough, ropey texture that you see here. I think that's beautiful. And the leaf photograph, look at how you see kind of that like wrinkled, bumpy texture of that leaf because it's so zoomed in. I think that's absolutely beautiful. Let's look at two different ones. Here you have, look how rough this brick is, this bumpy, rough brick texture. And then you have this kind of thick, hairy fur texture. Now, it doesn't seem soft to me, but it does seem kind of furry, but almost like stiff fur in that picture. Now, this one, you get that very subtle bump on the surface of this basketball. It's been worn down a lot. And then you have the spiky texture of the outside of this fruit. And then look at this. Look at this kind of smooth, creamy texture of the frosting, right? Creamy, gooey, sticky texture. And then this, wholly kind of bumpy surface of the sponge. So these are beautiful examples of macro photos that solely are about texture. Now let's talk about different texture options for you. Here are just a few, but there are so many more, right? Anything that's the way something feels, that's a texture. So rough, soft, sandy, bumpy, slick, prickly, pointy, rocky, wet, furry, hairy, fluffy, woven, scaly, flaky. These are all great texture words, which are things we'll want to think about for the project. So here's what you're going to do. Think about 5 different types of textures. I've listed a bunch more right here on the screen. Sticky, bumpy, spiky, rough, smooth, soft, furry, slimy, pointy, squishy, lumpy, grainy, flaky, bubbly, crumbly, etc. You can use some of mine if you like. You can pick 5 of mine, or you can make up some of your own that you think are different or more fun. Be my guest. You're going to take at least 2 macro photos of each type of texture. So it says 8 plus, that should be 10. I'm not good at math. So 5 different types of texture, 2 photos each, that's 10 photos. So you'll use each subject only once. Once you take a photo of that tree bark, it's done, right? These rocks for rough texture, they're done. All photos must be your own. So we're not finding images on the internet of textures that's already been done. I want you to look at the area around you, whether it's indoors, outdoors, whatever you prefer. Look around and find these textures. Then you'll place these photos together in your Google Slides portfolio and label them with the texture word, like I've done for the rough texture images on the screen. You can put all of the photos on one slide, or you can have one slide for each type of texture. That's totally up to you. Have fun, be creative. I can't wait to see what type of textures you find and photograph, and I hope that you have a good time doing it. If you have any questions, please let me know on the Google Classroom, and I'm excited to see what you come up with.